Shit or get off the pot. Mm, 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 mm. Change is constant. Change is constant. If we reach this point, if you reach this point in your relationships, it means that there have been many things that we have not talked about before, that we could have had foresight on, that snuck snuck up on us, but technically it means we've just neglected them. So technically, I hope you don't have to have this conversation. I hope you don't have to have or go through these steps. However, these steps, the shit or get off the pot steps, will be helpful for you, whether it's for your partnership or for yourself. I do think the steps are useful as you think about change management. Change management is a term we use in HR and in management consulting to help a company, a team, to move from one state to a future state. That process is a process and it is complex, and you have to define what are your milestones. You have to define what's your motivation. Why are we changing? What's not working here that we want to move to a different situation? What are the stakeholders and so forth? All this business gibberish. That to say, that also applies to our lives. It applies to how we live. It applies to, we started dating, honey, and we went out every night, but now we have two kids. And if you go out every night, we're going to have a problem. No, we are having a problem. The problem is already being had. We did not foresee the changes, or we simply did not want to adapt to the changing circumstances. Since change is constant, it's kind of like death. Death is inevitable and change is constant, but somehow, some way, we want to pretend like it's not, or that we can avoid it. So let's walk through the steps the steps of change management. Step zero. Yes, step zero. Zero is a number that we don't ever put in lists, and I like zero. So step zero, I suggest. It's a suggestion. It's not an obligation. Clearly, nothing here is an obligation. It's just a suggestion. I suggest that you do a 30-day detox. Yeah, I'm saying it again. I am obsessed with detoxes. Not because detoxes are the end all be all. No, not at all. Not at all. But because I'm convinced. What percentage am I willing to play with here? I'm convinced that let's go with 80. We like 80, right? I'm convinced that 80% of the population does not actually know what their thriving body looks and feels like. 80%. Yep, I can actually sleep well at night saying that. I could be wrong, but in the sense that we live in an intoxicated, if you live in a city, your pollutants, the water, the air quality, electronics everywhere. And we have no idea what their effects are on our body because it's entirely new. Our food, if you can eat organic, fantastic. If you can eat organic, everything all the time, fantastic. Tell me where you live, please, and I'll be moving there next week. So unless you live in a field out in the middle of somewhere, nowhere, with very little technology, where you know the cows' names and you plant your own tomatoes, more than likely you have toxins flooded in your body. So to flush out your system will help your mind to work better. You'll have less anxiety, you'll sleep better, your cognitive reasoning capabilities will be heightened. All of those things are true. I can send you the studies. It's not about that. I want you to feel it in your body. And as you do that, whatever the issue is that we're going to try to tackle as a change management issue in your relationship, will be better served. You'll be able to tackle it better because you'll realize, oh, once I reset my body, imagine it's a nicotine issue. I'm a smoker and my partner wants me to stop smoking because we're expecting our first child, and I don't want to be the smoking partner. I don't want to be the smoking partner. So you have a clear motivation. You're expecting the bambino or the bambina, and so that might be, easier for you to just charge forward. However, if you just do the detox, you might realize that your body doesn't actually even need nicotine. And it's a funny thing because smokers actually relax because they're smoking in the process of smoking, you're breathing better. You're forcibly changing your breath rhythm. So you naturally relax. So it helps um, to activate your parasympathetic nervous system. But at the same way, nicotine is it's a stimulant, so it makes you nervous. It's a weird, funny thing. But as you flush out your system, whether it's from sugar, from processed foods, from pop, from alcohol, whatever it is, as you process your system, flush out your system, or detoxes like technology, or it's all different types of media. As you flush out your system, you'll be surprised what new levels of pH balance you discover in yourself. And those new levels will help you think more clearly and make your way forward. One, determine the need. What is it that you want to change? Why do you want to change it? What's the current situation? Identify the future state. I like to not be the smoking parent. Uh, Identify the roles. My role is to not be the smoking parent. So I am the patient right now. My partner is going to be the cheerleader, and my motivation is bambino or bambina that's coming. And then D, what are the triggers and roadblocks that you foresee? You foresee that you have a peak of work coming that's about 2 months long, and it's always hectic. It's always hectic. And in that social context, most of your colleagues are smokers. Okay, that's a trigger, and it's a roadblock. How are you going to navigate? If you've identified it, then it's going to be easier for you to navigate, because then it'll be helpful for you to create those steps to manage the situation before it arrives. You're going to make more friends with the non-smoking friends. You're going to do all sorts of things. Okay, that's step one with its 4 steps. Okay, 2, draft a plan. Draft a plan. As if you were at work, you're going to draft a plan. Draft a plan. It needs to include milestones. Okay, this is after your detox. I currently am smoking a pack a day. Okay, I'm going to drastically drop to a pack a day. Okay, a pack and a half a day right now. So I want to drop to maybe a pack in the next 3 weeks. Okay, so in the next 3 weeks, I'm down to a pack. Okay, and in the next 2 weeks from there, from 4 weeks, so by 2 months, I'm down to half a pack. So what are the milestones? And then what are the rewards that you want to give to yourself? Holiday, clothes, new toys, whatever it is, whatever motivates you, that'll serve to push you forward. And then 3, acceptance. What are acceptance? Acceptance, as I talked to you before about my mom and so forth. There are some things that we just have to accept, that this just is. If your partner went through that whole process and they haven't quit smoking, they haven't. They're still a smoker. But if they were smoking a pack and a half a day, now they're maybe just down to a pack a week. Or maybe they've even gone further than that. They just have 2 cigarettes a week. I mean, technically, not even according to the WHO are they a smoker, because you have to smoke 4 cigarettes a day, I think, to be considered a smoker. Or at least that's the last stat I had. So, it's can you live with that? Can you live with that for yourself? You've done great work. You've done great work. You've come really far, but you haven't reached your complete future state. You've reached an intermediate state before that future state. Is that okay? So to think through that process of respect, tolerance, acceptance, and the fact that you're committed to this person and they've done the best they can with the situation. Smoking might be an easy one, or it might not, but maybe pornography might be a more challenging one because it affects your shared sexuality. So think about what's acceptance for you in your partnership, for your partner, as you're both working through this. Because if there's one person that's actively doing a work, maybe if it's a substance issue, for example, but sometimes it might be 2. It might be we need to communicate. We need to change how we communicate. We're maybe too violent with each other, or we're not non-violent. I mean, we're not non-violent. We're very violent with each other, but we're not sweet enough, but we're not kind enough, and we're actually both wanting to try to be more expressive and kinder. So play with that to determine what are your real limits. Your real limits once you've done that work, and even before you do that work. If it's a substance issue, I wouldn't label those limits beforehand, because then you're not creating the real motivation that the person needs to release the substance from their life. But it's something to think about. What if they don't get there? We will cheer them on, hoping that they don't meet that goal, they surpass the goal. We must, if we're just the cheering part, we must cheer them on in that role. If we're both working towards something, the same. We have to expect more from ourselves than just our bare minimum. Otherwise, we don't even get to the minimum. However, if they've done all they can, if they've and you've seen them sweat and tears, and they've only reached this, can we live with that? Can we live with that? I would argue that you can, because if you've seen them work, you've seen them earnestly work towards your towards your plot and towards your garden, then you know the effort has been put, and you know the effort is there to help you both grow together. What are some changes that you foresee in the future that can be talked about early on now to avoid reaching this place of change management emergency? See you tomorrow.